Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. I've got to be a little bit quiet though. I can't be as loud as I like to be. But I saw something that I've got to talk about, and that is the midfield left-back situation that has emerged on the timeline from what Laurie Whitwell has said, which is that apparently United aren't too sure about getting another midfielder. And if I'm going to be honest, that isn't what I'm wanting to be hearing. I'm in Jamaica, in the family home, on holiday, trying to enjoy, and I've been trying to keep a little bit of patience. I've been trying to keep steady, even killed, not be as reactionary as many of you often suggest that I can be, and not quite be as emotional, be a little bit less cynical. But for me, I thought, you know what, 3 weeks, or even less so, United are playing against Hull, and the Premier League starts. And I don't want to be caught out again. Mason Mount's performances in pre-season, being a pre-season Perlo, might have swayed Ineos' thinking a little bit. The budget might have a lot more constraints that we're being led to believe. But what has been reported by Laurie and what has been reported between the lines, and Mick has mentioned it, and even DJ Meal, which is a very well-renowned ITK with very good information, has said United are confused or conflicted about what area to address, which is midfield or whether it be the left back. And then I did some thinking, and I tweeted this earlier, and I was like, midfield, left back, United aren't quite sure which one to address. And I'm like, you know what? They're going to try and kill two birds with one stone. And that is a midfielder that can do both. So that's MLS, Lewis-Skelly, that's Baleba, that's Camavinga, and that could even include Lewis Hall, who was a midfielder all throughout his academy days and only made a transition to fullback as a professional. And we've seen how comfortable he is in central areas, in central zones, in the pitch. And I'm like, you know what? Ineos, I'm going to give you benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give you just a little bit of credit. I'm going to believe in you and think you're going to have the wherewithal, you're going to have the contingency planning and the clever squad building navigation to be like, you know what? Let's sign a midfielder that can play left back, or let's sign a left back that can play midfield, and vice versa. Because that way you can address your left back issues, not having to rely on Luke Shaw throughout the season. You don't see Dorgu as a left back anyway. And then you can be like, you know what? Both is addressed. And I've got to be a little bit quiet. I'm in a room full of people, but not a room, but a house full of people. But you get my drift. Can you address left back, more left-footedness in the team for balance, and someone that can play midfield and deputise in there? If you aren't quite sure on getting two individuals, I know Ineos and Manchester United recently have been known for cutting corners, but this might actually be the type of cost-cutting and cut corners that could actually work. It might actually make sense. And then looking at the list, Lewis-Skelly, probably not attainable. I believe that he did want to leave. Are you really sure that he can get first team regular opportunities for Arsenal at the level that they're at now, which is perennial challenges in the Premier League, perennial challenges in the Champions League? They're going to sign Bruno Guimaraes, they'll sign Zubamendi, all effectively play left centre midfield. You've got Declan Rice, who plays week in, week out. Where will his minutes come from? At left back, you've got Hincapié and Calafiori. Even though I don't think Arsenal want to sell Lewis-Skelly, but he's a young, great talent, him and his entourage might be looking at it thinking, where can I go that will get me better opportunity? I think United's viable. And then you look at Carlos Baleba, much maligned, raw, some of his cognitive decision-making and footballing work in midfield can be called into question. He relies a lot on his raw attributes and his ability and his physicality. He has got technical ability. It's just about how he applies it. I think he needs a lot of individual coaching. And there's something about Baleba that makes you feel like him as a left back could actually be a bit of a masterstroke. He's played left back for a few games for Brighton anyway, so it's not exactly something that's alien to him. And also you get used to his athleticism not being alien to working centrally, and almost uses ball carrying and lung busting capacity and his transition defending ability in an area that is a little bit less dangerous, and that is out wide. That one for me is very, very, very intriguing, and I believe Carlos Baleba as that left back, centre midfield hybrid can actually provide a lot of value. And you've got Camavinga, who's played a hell of a lot of games at left back. He's played a hell of a lot of games at midfield. He's very much an out and out left back and centre midfield hybrid. He's actually really, really good defensively. He's known for his long legs and his tackling and wrapping around, almost being a little bit goal gadget, Wan-Bissaka-like in defensive areas. But it's just about him being coached now. I feel like he's plateaued a lot in his development. Real Madrid fans have not been happy with him, not been satisfied. They demand high standards. And sometimes I feel like young players that go to Real Madrid and don't exactly have a lot of success in terms of, from a legacy standpoint and individual progression, they just get used to the galactical living, very comfortable, regularly challenging for trophies whilst having not a lot of responsibility or accountability, especially for younger players. I think people like Trumani and Camavinga, someone that needs to go to another team, take on a lot more responsibility, and actually progress as a player, leave their comfort zone. And unfortunately, it looks like Camavinga doesn't want to do that. But I think it would have been such a blessing if it was possible, because I think the talent is there. It just needs to be honed, because I think he's plateaued, but he's only 23 years of age. He's had some injury issues, which he could maybe get over whilst having not to play so much. And when people are mentioning certain players and calling them injury prone, when you actually look into the data on transfer market, I think a lot of it is quite overblown. I think his matches and minutes per season are actually decent, and I think some of the data around injuries and time off does need to be contextualised a little bit. And that brings me to Lewis Hall. For me, Lewis Hall is my number one target, because I think he's got potential to be the best left back in Europe alongside Nuno Mendes, and I think that is no exaggeration. He was a midfielder all the way up until he was professional, before making a transition. I think when players make such a good transition positionally, especially at that age, at the level of football, I think it's testament to how good of a footballer they are, how much they learn, how much they take on new information, how much they develop. So I think Lewis Hall isn't so much someone that's played midfield. He's probably the only one that hasn't played midfield and left back at professional level, but I've talked about how unbelievably quality he is inside the pitch. When he inverts, when he goes in narrow, his ball carrying, his eye for a pass. It's a zone and area of the pitch that he's so comfortable with that he can almost be a left back that starts left back for you, but when he drifts inside, which you've seen a hell of a lot, especially if you balance it with a Lenioro being a right back, centre back hybrid, that can almost sit in almost like a defensive three in a rest defence. You can allow the left centre midfielder that starts to push on a little bit more aggressively, whether that be Tielemans, for added creativity, and then you've got Lewis Hall operating inside the pitch as well. I think there's so many possibilities, and that's what versatile Swiss Army knives, like the players we mentioned, could actually work. But I saw the reports and I thought, you know what, I could get a little bit negative, I can get a little bit depressed. It looks like Ineos haven't really been briefing journalists much. They haven't really known much about what's going on. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. There's nothing much BTS. So I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I'm starting to become a little bit more concerned. It's 3 weeks. Things have gone very, very quiet. It's been 3 weeks since we signed Tielemans, and I think the squad isn't complete, and I think there's an opportunity there for United to actually challenge. With all the disarray going on with our rivals, there isn't really a rival apart from Arsenal that's solidified in where they are. And even Arsenal have issues around Declan Rice and Saka and Saliba in terms of their wear and tear and physically. So I just don't want United to have an opportunity pass by. But I've seen they're basically trying to choose between signing a left back and a centre midfielder. I think we've mentioned a few players that cover the bill for both. And maybe signing a hybrid might be the cleverest way to go. But that's where I point a question to you. Do you think, if you read between the lines and the line of reporting, that United are trying to sign someone that can play both? Or are they going for either or? And who would you actually choose? And what would you think would be the actual cleverest signing to make? But anyway, I appreciate you for tuning in. I had to be a little bit more quiet. But you know what? I've got to make sure the content stays consistent. I've got to do what I can, film where I can, do what I can. So all the comments in the last video about my location. But it's actually my last day before I go to a resort tomorrow, where it can probably be a little bit more scenic with what I'm showing, but it's my roots, my culture, family home, and it's been an extremely nice break that I definitely needed, but I had to make sure that I stay consistent and built on the momentum that he's allowed me to gain. But you know what, just pose a question. When we've seen a deal sheet, and we've seen what's been mentioned about the transfers, and we've seen what's been quiet, and you know what, let's talk about possible solutions. But let me know what you think. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit the hype button. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.